The most common mistake that I see with this is that people don't realize how excited their behavior and facial expressions and body language is when they are giving food. So a thing I've also seen a lot when clients are like, this isn't working, and I watch them do it, they get like excited, happy face, and they're like, oh, what do I have? So they're unintentionally building excitement during the process when we're trying to reduce excitement.
Welcome to Enrichment for the Real World, the podcast devoted to improving the quality of life of pets and their people through enrichment. We are your hosts, Allie Bender.
And I'm Emily Strong.
And we are here to challenge and expand your view of what enrichment is, what enrichment can be, and what enrichment can do for you and the animals in your lives. Let's get started. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Enrichment for the Real World. And I want to thank you for rating, reviewing, and subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts.
Okay, friends, today we're going to talk about how to use food to get dogs who are way too excited about food to chill out about food. So we use food to make food less exciting, but still cool, still good. We want dogs to like food. We just don't want dogs to lose their minds over the food, because when they're too excited about food, it makes it very hard for them to learn and focus and do well. So the process for this is pretty simple, and it does require a little bit of thought and preparation on your part, but really it's about finding opportunities to just have food be not a big deal throughout the day. So they just get food for no reason. There's nothing exciting about it. And then after they get the food, nothing exciting happens afterwards either. So the first step is to get food and put it in airtight containers around the house in places where you can access it, but your dog can't. In every room where your dog and you might be likely to encounter each other throughout the day. So it doesn't have to be every room in the house, but for me, it would be my office, the kitchen, the living room. That's pretty much it. Those are pretty much the only three places in my house where my dogs hang out, and also I hang out during the day. So step one, hide food in airtight containers in rooms where you and your dog are generally going to be together on the day. Step two, when you happen to be in the same room as your dog and you're in one of the rooms that has food in it, just casually get some of that food, give it to your dog, and then walk away. That's it. When the opportunity arises, give your dog a piece of the food that you've set aside for them. No big deal, and then walk away. Step three, repeat. Just do that as many times throughout the day as it makes sense for you to do it. Usually, when people follow these steps, what we see is it takes on average about 2 weeks for dogs to be like, oh yeah, food happens. It's cool. We like food, but it's just not that big of a deal because food happens. So more often than not, that is how it plays out. But let's talk about common mistakes, common ways that this gets messed up, and ways to prevent it from getting messed up. So first of all, the two by far most common reasons that I see dogs in this state to begin with, like way too excited about food, are either because they came from a quote unquote balanced training background where it was like reward the good, punish the bad. And so food would get associated with training, which was an unpredictable sort of mess of like, am I about to get shocked or am I about to get a snack? And so a lot of times we see those dogs are really aroused in a kind of a distressy way. We see distress around food, like excitement and also reservation. We see a lot of coping mechanisms happening. I've had several clients whose dogs came from this background sort of like redirect on the client and start nibbling on them, not not biting them in a way that causes injury, but like, oh my God, this is really stressful. What do I do about this? I need to do something. I'm going to nibble on your sleeve, right? And then the second, by far most common reason is almost the opposite of that, somewhere between like a nil if protocol or nothing in life is free protocol, and just people using food to get high motivation from their learners, usually in like sporting contexts, where the only time the dogs got food was when something really exciting was happening. So they have to work for their food through a game that they really love. They have to work for their food to do this sport that they really love. So for those dogs, food just has this connotation with the most exciting parts of their life, which makes food in itself incredibly exciting. So those are the two biggest reasons that we see this behavior to begin with, which means that one of the biggest mistakes that can be made when you're trying to get your dog to care a little bit less about food, to be able to engage with food in a way that they find enjoyable but not quite so arousing, is to not do those things, right? Don't mix food with punishment. Like, that's just don't do that. Don't play that game where it's like, if you get it right, you get a cookie. If you get it wrong, I'm going to shock you. Like, that is how you're going to get that behavior, or that's a very likely way to get that behavior. And also, don't make food the only time they get food be during these times when they're really excited. So if you are doing either of those two things and you're trying this procedure, you're going to be working against yourself and undoing all of the good that you're doing by recreating the circumstances that got you there in the first place. I want to be clear that these are not the only reasons that this happens. I've also seen this with dogs who experience deprivation during their developmental periods. And I have heard tell that there is certain lineage of Labradors that have a gene that makes them feel constantly hungry. I've never met that lab before, so I have no personal experience with a Labrador who just genetically is always hungry all the time. That is a thing that gets discussed in our industry, so that could be a thing to explore if you have a lab and you're experiencing this. So I'm not saying that those two things are the only reasons that we might see this, but they are the most common reasons that I have seen this personally in my practice. And the times that I have seen clients not be successful, usually the culprit is that they do the work. We get the dogs to not care as much about the food, and then they go right back to their like nil if protocol, or food happens only in sports and food puzzles, or go back to send their dog to board and train at a balance trainer's facility where they go back to doing the food and shock thing. So like, yeah, you are going to undo the work that you've done if you go back to the thing that got your dog there in the first place, right? The most common mistake that I see with this is that people don't realize how excited their behavior and facial expressions and body language is when they are giving food. So a thing I've also seen a lot when clients are like, this isn't working, and I watch them do it, they get like excited, happy face, and they're like, oh, what do I have? So they're unintentionally building excitement during the process when we're trying to reduce excitement. So in that case, the sort of tip that I give people, I'll say like, step 1.5 is intentionally put on poker face and take some deep and even breaths to calm yourself down. So like, use poker face as you give the dog the food. The third tip or common mistake is people thinking that because we are giving dogs food frequently throughout the day, that means that we are giving them a lot of extra calories. And that is not necessarily true. If your dog needs additional calories, sure, use this strategy to give them additional calories while not making food overly exciting. But a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just have people take maybe 3/4 of their dog's breakfast, 3/4 of their dog's dinner, and use that food for around the house throughout the day. So they're still getting the same amount of food in total during the entire day, but just we're setting aside some of that food to be given in this like, no big deal, it's not exciting, nothing happens, it's all cool type of strategy. So that's another thing to just be aware of is like, what are your goals for your dog's weight and your dog's body condition score? If you're concerned about weight gain, just utilize the calories that you would normally be giving them during mealtime, but just spread it throughout the day. If you would like your dog to get extra calories or they need to get extra calories, you can add additional snacks in this process. So those are the big tips for how to do this well. I think in general, the way that we know that it has worked is that when you are in a situation where historically your dog has been way over the top excited, like mealtime when you're preparing their meals, or training time when you put on your training pouch, or nose work time when you're about to go out into the backyard to practice the find it game or something. Historically, if your dog has been shrieking and jumping and all these things, a lot of people think it's not working because they're expecting their dog to go from climbing all over you, jumping and screaming, to standing totally still and being stoic. And that's not what you're looking for. That might eventually be the goal, but change happens in approximations, right? You're not going to go from the most jacked up on Mountain Dew to absolutely stoic and chill. That's not how it works, right? So what you're looking for to see that the strategy is effective is that you're seeing a reduction. So maybe your dog used to jump so high that their back feet would be at eye level with you and they would scream so loud that it would hurt your ears. And now they're just jumping up like little hops, like hobby horse kind of jumping, and they're regular barking in a way that doesn't hurt your ears. That is an observable reduction in arousal. And if you continue with this strategy, you will probably see ongoing reduction. I think another thing that you need to ask yourself is, why do you care about reducing arousal? Like, what is the pain point for you? Because I also don't mind that my dogs are a little bit excited when we get food out. For me, the goal is that I want dogs to be excited and happy that they get to do something enriching, whether this is like mealtime or training time or adventure walk time. I want to see that they're excited and happy about it. I don't want a dog who's like meh about everything in life. That doesn't seem like a very joyful way to live life, right? But for me, the reason I would do this protocol is if the dog was so over the top excited that they can't focus, that they can't learn, that they don't actually get around to enjoying the activity because they're so amped up about the idea of doing the activity that they're not fully present for the activity. Or also, like, if they pose a danger to other dogs or humans, if the other dogs in the household or the cats or the birds are getting overwhelmed by how jacked up they are, if they are jumping on their humans and knocking them down or tearing their clothes or something, being a safety risk is the other reason I would care. So I'm only going to do this work until we see that everybody's needs are being met. The dog has a low enough arousal that they can be responsive to the people in their lives and the non-humans in their lives. They can be responsive to their family. I want to see that they can focus. I want to see that they can learn. I want to see that they can engage in ways that's healthy and safe for everybody. So for me, back to my original description, if I see a dog who's doing that cute little like tap dance, hobby horse, rocking motion, jumping and barking at an appropriate decibel level, for me, I would just take that as a success. I would tick that box. Like, we got this. We nailed this. This dog is appropriately excited about food now. But again, I don't get to dictate what your goals are and what you're trying to get out of this and why this behavior is painful for you. So I would say, in order to know whether or not what you're doing is successful, the first thing you need to really, really articulate for yourself is why you're doing this to begin with and what is the pain point in the current behavior or set of behaviors. so that you can know whether or not you've actually achieved that goal, right? If you don't know what your goal is, it's going to be really hard to know whether or not you've actually achieved your goal. So, to recap, for dogs who are way too excited about food to the point that they can't learn, they can't focus, they can't respond to their handler, there may be a safety risk. The steps are: hide food in airtight containers in places around the house where you and your dog are going to be encountering each other, where you can reach it but your dog can't. Periodically throughout the day, when you're in the room with them, give them some of that food in a nonchalant way and then walk away. It's no big deal. Food happens. So what? Repeat that as many times throughout the day as is reasonable, sustainable, and convenient for you. Look for those opportunities. Really evaluate all your other interactions with the dog to make sure that you're not doing things in other contexts that is working against yourself. And finally, to know whether or not what you're doing is working, first articulate for yourself what your goal is, what you're trying to achieve, what pain point you're trying to alleviate, and then observe behaviors to see if the pain point has been alleviated, whether or not excitement still exists, whether or not the dog is still excited. Are they less excited enough? Are they calm enough?
I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if there's someone in your life who also needs to hear this, be sure to text it to them right now. If you're a pet parent looking for more tips on enrichment, behavior modification, and finding harmony with your pet, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Pet Harmony Training. If you're a behavior training professional dedicated to enrichment for yourself, your clients, and their pets, check us out on TikTok and Instagram at Pet Harmony Pro. As always, links to everything we discussed in this episode are in the show notes. Thank you to Ellen Yoakum for editing this episode and making us sound good. Our intro music is from Penguin Music on Pixabay. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps more pet lovers and professionals find us so they can bring enrichment into their world too. Thank you for listening, and here's to harmony.